Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Reviews presented by Quantum Podcasts. As always, I will be your host, Chris, and this is the show about all things movies and TV. Well, we close out phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Spider Man Far From Home, who is my favorite superhero of all time. So I'm going to be a little biased during this review episode today, but I think it's still a really good movie. Now, others say otherwise. I think it's one of the worst MCU movies. I think it's one of the best Spider-Man movies. It's definitely one of the best MCU movies, I think. And again, I could be totally biased with my love for not just Spider-Man, but for Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man. But I really like it, so I'm excited for today's episode, of course. Before we get into that, though, there's a couple of reactions I'll go over today. A couple of streaming shows that have been recently put, one on Netflix and one on HBO. And then to wrap everything up, we'll do all the rankings that we normally do with the MCU ranking, the popcorn rating, and then, of course, the villain scale, which I'm very excited about the villain scale today. It's one of my favorite actors of all time playing the villain. Jake Gyllenhaal plays Mysterio in this movie. And I actually like his Mysterio a lot. Again, that's another one that people have had problems with this movie, was that it was a villain problem. I don't think this has a villain problem. I really like Jake Gyllenhaal's version of Mysterio and the way that he approached it. So a lot of good things to come when we get to that villain scale. But a couple of reminders at the top of the episode before we get into all that. Reminder, you can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the cinematic reviews. You can also listen to the audio version on your favorite podcast service. We are now around the world. So wherever you are, whichever streaming service you use to listen to podcasts, I am on there. So go ahead and check that out. Follow, subscribe to the show. It helps out a lot. Also, check out the social media pages on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. That helps the show out a lot when you go and follow those pages. Post all the graphics from every episode, along with news and other things coming out of Hollywood. Just posted the new Spider-Man Brand New Day posters that released. So it looks really, really cool. Super excited about that. And check out the trailer for Brand New Day as well. Still waiting on the Avengers Doomsday trailer. I think we'll get that trailer here sooner than later. My guess is maybe they'll attach it to the Mandalorian Grogu movie in May. That seems to be a really high likelihood. Or maybe they're going to wait even longer and attach it to the Brand New Day movie. We will find out. But I think the Avengers Doomsday trailer is upon us. The official trailer. We've gotten those teasers over the Christmas, New Year's break, but I think an official trailer will be coming sooner rather than later for Avengers Doomsday. And we will, of course, react to that on the show when that does drop. Also, the app for the show has been put on hold temporarily. There's been some coding issues along with some uploading issues to iOS and Google Play. But the web browser version is live. So go ahead and check that out. That is cinematic-reviews.com. That is now the official website of the podcast. So go there and check that out. You can rank the movies like I do with the popcorn scale that I use on the show. You can play a couple of cool trivia games where you guess what movie that quote came from, and also just generic trivia questions about movies and TV in a multiple choice format as well. You can also build your own profile and show off your favorite movies, your favorite actors, your favorite genres. You can also take a look at other people and their reviews on the website as well. So it's really interactive. I wanted to make it kind of like a community-based website. So go ahead and check that out. Sign up for a profile and get to reviewing. I reviewed a bunch of them already, and I'll continue to add my reviews in there as well. You can also check out the artwork from each episode on the website. Just click into the movie that you want to look at, and I've attached a image gallery for all the artworks that you see in each episode. You can also watch the episode as well. That is attached to the movie page on the website. So another place where you can watch the show as well. So with that, let's head over to news and reactions for 2 show reactions that are currently streaming right now. So the 2 shows that I'll be reacting to today, first one is Malcolm in the Middle, Life's Still Unfair, the reunion, I guess, series event that is going on Hulu and Disney Plus. This is a 4-episode reunion event for the iconic and beloved show Malcolm in the Middle. Brings back everyone pretty much. Hal is returning, played by Bryan Cranston. You have Reese. Francis is back. You have Frankie Muniz, of course, returning as Malcolm. You have Lois, who's coming back, and a bunch of other casts like Piama, who is Francis's wife. We have Abe, as well as Stevie returns as well. Then we have a couple of newcomers. Well, not really newcomers, but just kind of like recasting. Dewey got recasted in this show because the original actor, Eric Sullivan, is dedicating his life to academics. So he said no to returning to this. Reportedly, he was offered like an obscene amount of money, and he still said no. So I applaud him for that, to sticking to what he wants to do with his life. He has separated himself from Hollywood. He doesn't do the acting thing anymore. He is solely based on academics. So they ended up recasting him with Caleb Clark, Ellsworth Clark. I think he did a fine job. He did a serviceable job. They wrote Dewey into the script as being away to kind of accommodate Sullivan's return, but he ended up saying no. But because of rewrite costs and time, they just kind of left that into the plot. So a lot of so Caleb is all on screen doing like a Zoom call when he's over in France. He is a famous musician, is what it sounds like, and he's performing in Europe. So he is unable to attend Hal and Lois's 50th anniversary. So he does that via Zoom. Then we have Jamie, played by Anthony Timpano, who is the older version of Jamie. He has now joined the military, kind of went the route of Reese there. But he does return physically to the anniversary party for Hal and Lois. So that was cool to see the older version of Jamie. Then we have newcomer Kelly, who is the youngest sibling of the family. Seems like she is, I think she's like 17, 18. So she's been around for a while. This reunion show, I guess it's the 40th anniversary. Now that I'm looking at the synopsis of this, it's not the 50th. I had the 50th in my head, but I guess it's the 40th anniversary of Hal and Lois. But this does take place about 20 years later than the original series. So the timeline for Kelly seems like, a couple of years after Malcolm and Reese graduated from high school, they ended up having Kelly. And then, of course, we have a couple of other newcomers. So we have Leah, who is the daughter of Malcolm, but he has kept her a secret. That's kind of like the big conflict in this reunion show. Malcolm has hid his entire life away from his family. To them, he has no girlfriend. He has no daughter. He is single, doing the nonprofit work for his organization. And then when it comes to Leah, he told her that his parents had passed away and that he didn't have any siblings as well. He said the same story to his girlfriend, Tristan. But once they find out, it causes a huge conflict between everybody. And that forces Malcolm and specifically Lois to make up their differences and kind of reconcile everything. Hal gets a really touching video moment towards the end of the show between all the kids and everybody around him, but specifically Malcolm, who we see in the video. It's like a half-ass 5-second part in the video, and he realizes once he listens to everybody else in the video that he has made a huge mistake, that he has put his career before his family, and that he needs to reconcile everything. And so we get that really touching speech from Malcolm to Hal at the anniversary dinner, where they kind of reconcile everything. But that was really good. And this was really cool too, because if you remember in the original series, Hal was like this diehard romantic towards Lois. It's like every year he's doing something special. We even get that build up here in this reunion series, where he gets every day up until the actual anniversary to kind of drown Lois in all this romantic hoopla. But on the day, he is not allowed to do anything. That is Lois's chance to give Hal some big gesture or gift for their anniversary for once. And she puts together that video, and it's really cool. She coordinated the dinner and chose the decorations and everything around it. So that was really cool that she got the opportunity to express her love for Hal, who we've seen, like I said, throughout the original series. It was Hal just smothering Lois with all the romantic gestures. So that was really cool to see. I really like this reunion series. Now, it's not exactly what I was hoping for from the series, but it was still really, really good. I'm giving it 4 popcorns on the popcorn scale. Slightly below the original series. I think the original series, of course, is untouchable. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I watch it on repeat even today. But back when I was growing up, this was a huge show in my family, and we watched it all the time, and we'll continue to do so. But I'm giving Malcolm in the Middle, Life's Still Unfair, 4 popcorns. I really, really enjoyed this reunion, seeing everybody come back for this. Now, they've left the door open to do more, but the original plan was to just do these 4 episodes and call it good. But the showrunners and Frankie Muniz himself has come out and said, hey, we're open to it, but our plan was to just do these 4 episodes and call it good. So we'll see what Disney decides and if the cast want to do more. I think there's definitely a lot to do here for another. Maybe they do another season or 2 seasons where you get 10 episodes or maybe even 8 episodes, and you get some more of this. So, but it's an easy watch. It's only 4 episodes. They're about 30 minutes each. So it's pretty much just a 2-hour movie. So it's definitely an easy watch on Hulu. So check that out, especially if you're a Malcolm in the Middle fan. The next reaction that we'll do is a HBO series, and it's not one, and it's not a new one. It's one that everybody should be familiar with, and that is Euphoria. We finally have the season 3 premiere of Euphoria last week. Zendaya comes back as Rue. We get Lexi. We get Nate. We get to catch up with Maddie. We get to catch up with Cassie. So a lot of cool catching up to do with the season 3 premiere, is kind of just setting up the tone of season 3, catching us up on where everybody is. Rue is mixed up in this whole drug organization to pay back a debt. Nate owns his own construction company, more or less probably taking over from his dad. Then we have Cassie, who kind of took a more not really acceptable route with her life. She has turned into an Instagram, TikTok influencer who is now trying to convince Nate to let her join OnlyFans so that they can pay for their wedding. They have this huge argument where she wants to spend 50 grand on flowers. And so she brought up this idea of doing OnlyFans so where she can pay for the flowers, and instead of Nate, who seems to be forking the bill since he has his own company. So she has, and a lot of the images of her and the dog have been just circling social media, but she's acting, that's just what that world is about. It's acting, she's trying to make a living, and this is how she's doing it. She's using her looks. So a lot of people are just really trashing Sydney Sweeney's character in here just because of that whole dog thing. But Sydney Sweeney is acting, it's nothing that she's doing like personally. This is her being an actor, and that's just what the character ended up being. Eric Dane, if you didn't know, did pass away. He plays Cal, who is Nate's father. I'm sure we'll get some kind of update on where his character is, since he unfortunately passed away. He won't be back, but he did film a bunch of episodes before his passing, so we'll see what they do there. Fez, he passed away before they started filming, if I remember right. So they kind of wrote him, his character, into prison. So that is currently where he's at after that whole incident at the end of season 2 with Ash getting shot. He ended up going away to prison for like 30 years, I think is what they said. So, but this was a great season premiere. I'm really excited about season 3. This is a show that I really, really like. Seasons 1 and 2 are currently on HBO as well. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't seen it in a while, if you haven't checked it out at all. But it's a fantastic show. It's very visceral. It's very, I guess, really hard R. This is like real life. This is what people deal with on an everyday basis, and they don't hold back. So it's a very graphic show, but it's also a very realistic show. So I really, really like it. Zendaya is fantastic in here. She's going to be up for a bunch of rewards, I'm sure, again, for her character Rue in this series. But I'm very excited for season 3. So check out Euphoria on HBO right now. First 2 seasons are up. Episode 1 of season 3 is now available. There's also there's 2 side mini series that you can watch as well, where you get to follow Rue more, and then you get to follow Jules more as well. So check out Euphoria today. Well, that's going to do it for today's news and reactions. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we'll get into our featured film, Spider-Man: Far From Home. This episode is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Still drinking energy that quits before you do? Stop crashing, stop shaking, and start performing. Meet Dubby Energy, clean energy made for gamers, creators, and anyone who refuses to slow down. With zero sugar, no jitters, and no crash, Dubby keeps you locked in whether you're grinding ranked, streaming for hours, or pushing through those late nights. There's no crash, no fade, just gas. Drink different, perform better. Grab Dubby Energy and use code Cinematic10 to get 10% off your order today.
There's gotta be someone else you can use. What about Thor?
Off-world.
Captain Marvel? Unavailable. But I'm just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Bitch, please, you've been to space.
What do you want, Peter? I want to go back on my trip with the girl who I really like and tell her how I feel. MJ, I
am Spider-Man.
No, of course I'm not.
I mean, it's kind of obvious.
You're right, you may not be ready, but this is my responsibility. Saving the world requires sacrifice. Sometimes people die.
I just always feel like I'm putting my friends in danger. The world needs the next Iron Man.
You going to step up or not?
So Spider-Man: Far From Home came out on July 2nd, 2019. So we're coming up on the 7th year anniversary of the film. I remember seeing this in theaters. I was blown away by Tom Holland once again as Spider-Man, blown away by Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. Jake Gyllenhaal, of course, is one of my favorite actors of all time. He's definitely in my top 5, maybe even top 3. I'll have to look at my list. But absolutely blew me away when Jake Gyllenhaal was cast in Spider-Man finally as Mysterio. If you remember the story back in the early 2000s, Jake Gyllenhaal was actually up to replace Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 2 after his back injury. But Tobey ended up recovering from the back injury and able to film. But Jake Gyllenhaal was like pretty much cast to replace Tobey as Peter Parker in Spider-Man. But it's really cool to see him return to the Spider-Man franchise as the villain, and I think he's a very good villain. I'm going to try to keep as much of my comments about Jake Gyllenhaal in the villain scale because there's a lot of them, but we'll touch base on him a little bit more in the casting when we run through that. But looking at the box office here real quick, budget of about $160 million, so not too bad. And it grossed a whopping $1.1 billion worldwide. Very awesome return on this movie. I mean, it's a Spider-Man movie. It's going to make at least $1 billion. I think Brand New Day could easily break 2. I know for sure No Way Home broke 2. I think that one ended up with like 2.1 or something like that. But that was really, really close a battle there. Let me check just to be sure so I don't speak out of turn here on No Way Home. No, it was just shy of $2 billion. So it hit $1.9 billion, whereas Far From Home hit 1.1. But still really good, especially for a Marvel movie. It's very rare for even a Marvel movie to get up to the $1 billion mark. But very, very good return on this. And I have really good reactions to it. I absolutely love it. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, I'm a huge Spider-Man guy. I'm a huge Tom Holland guy, so I'm a little biased in the review today, but I really love this movie. I love rewatching it. I need to watch it more. It's probably the Spider-Man that I've seen the least, but that's just because you have like No Way Home and Homecoming, and you have the Tobey Maguire movie with Spider-Man 2. I really like the Garfield movie, so I tend to watch those more too. But I think Homecoming and No Way Home are the ones that I've seen the most. Those are one of my favorite Spider-Man's movies of all time. But Far From Home is definitely up there. It's in my top 10 for the MCU. I don't want to step on rankings too much, but I really like it. I'm probably in the minority there because I'm a huge Spider-Man guy, so I'm a little biased. But I actually do genuinely think this is a really, really good movie. And it's an awesome Spider-Man movie. I absolutely love it. So let's get to the casting breakdown here real quick. And then we'll get into the synopsis real quick. So Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, played again by Tom Holland. I love his iteration of Spider-Man. He's my favorite Spider-Man actor to date. Before that, Garfield was my favorite. I just think Tom Holland has that really nice blend of awkwardness, but genius and funny. Your typical Peter Parker, basically. Garfield was more of the comedic bad boy, which I didn't really vibe with as much as Tom Holland. And then Tobey Maguire was more of the kind of whimsical, awkward Peter. But I think, and like I said, I think Tom Holland is like the really nice blend of both. Just like he is the vision of what Peter Parker would be in real life, and his Spider-Man is really great as well. I love the whimsy remarks and the charm and everything that he does as both Peter and Spider-Man. Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, like I said, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal, one of my favorite actors of all time. I love him in Nightcrawler and End of Watch, which we have done on the show. I have a lot of good things to say about him in there. I think the first Jake Gyllenhaal movie I ever watched was probably... Ooh, let me pull up his IMDb here. That's a really good question. What was the first? Maybe Donnie Darko? That might have been the first one that I saw. And then Brokeback Mountain took me a while to watch. Zodiac. Jarhead. Okay, so Jarhead. I think Jarhead was actually the first Gyllenhaal movie I ever watched. And then I think I went back and watched The Day After Tomorrow, Donnie Darko, Bubble Boy. So yeah, I think it's either Jarhead or The Day After Tomorrow. They were kind of Day After Tomorrow came out in 2004. Jarhead came out in 2005. So I think it was one of those two. But if I were to guess, I think it was Jarhead because I love watching Full Metal Jacket and then Jarhead together. So I think Jarhead was the first Gyllenhaal movie that I ever watched. But he's truly fantastic. I mean, him in Life, him in Prisoners. Oh my God, he's so good as Detective Loki in Prisoners, and I can't wait to do that movie eventually on the podcast. It's so good. Hugh Jackman, Terrence Howard, Jake Gyllenhaal. It's a really awesome movie. But Gyllenhaal, I think, is an incredible actor. He just him in that Roadhouse remake. Fantastic, and it sounds like they're making a sequel to it on Amazon, but he's really awesome. I would have loved for him to return as Mysterio. Maybe they could find a way through like the multiverse to do this, but with him dying at the end of this movie, it's going to be kind of messy to bring him back, but he did such a really good job in here. I'm super excited to talk about him on the villain scale today. MJ, played by Zendaya, who her and Tom Holland are together in real life as well, so that's really cool to see. But this is where they start to get into grow their romance a little bit. They finally revealed to each other that they like each other. They kiss for the first time. Peter's got this whole plan across Europe to tell her where he's going to get the Black Dahlia because of the murder. He's going to go up to the Eiffel Tower and give her the necklace and tell her how he feels. Granted, that didn't happen, so he ended up spilling the beans in London. So, but she's really great. I love the chemistry she has with Tom Holland, and that's what you need with Peter and MJ. You need really good chemistry. We're going to see how this goes in Brand New Day now that everybody has forgotten who Peter Parker is and they are no longer dating. So I'm interested to see how what their relationship goes in the new Spider-Man movie. We have Ned, played again by Jacob Batalon. He's fantastic in here as the best friend to Peter Parker. He ends up getting into a brief summer tisk with Betty, which was kind of unexpected, but also very fun. The way that they're calling each other babe within the first 2 seconds of liking each other, and it's really awesome. Nick Fury returns as Samuel L. Jackson. I think he has the most appearances in the MCU now that Robert Downey Jr. is done. But he's cool in here. He's trying to recruit Tom Holland to go on to SHIELD operations, but Tom Holland just wants to be a kid basically and go on his class trip. But Nick Fury just keeps sucking him back into the SHIELD world and the Avengers world. So, but he's really great in here. Alongside him is Maria Hill, who is now kind of his second in command now that Black Widow is gone. Kobe Smulders, of course, returns to play her. We haven't really seen her a whole lot lately, but this is probably the most, other than the first Avengers movie, where she gets like the most screen time. But she's great. I love seeing Kobe Smulders. May Parker, Marissa Tomei, the beautiful Marissa Tomei, plays May Parker once again, and she's got her own kind of summer tisk with Happy Hogan, played again by Jon Favreau. Theirs is really adorable too, where you can tell Happy is head over heels for May, but May sees it as kind of just a summer fling, not necessarily like a full blown romance. So I'm curious to see if they revisit this again. They don't really revisit it back in No Way Home. There's a brief few comments from Happy where he's trying to, get that spark going once again with May, but she kind of shuts him down right away. So we'll see if we turn to that. Well, we can't because she passes away in No Way Home. So that's pretty much it. That sucks. I wonder if Happy brings her up to Peter once again. But Happy, of course, doesn't know who Peter is. So that idea is shot. Wow, this really sucks of the world not having Peter Parker. I just realized that. Yeah, this really sucks. I was kind of hoping Happy and May would kind of get back together, but with her passing away in No Way Home, that's probably not going to happen. Maybe in a different universe, they ended up getting married or something like that, and Happy Hogan was like the Uncle Ben of that universe. Then the rest of the cast, we have the classmates and the teachers that go on the summer trip to Europe. We have Flash, who is still a douchebag to Peter, but he's in love with Spider-Man now, so that's kind of new. We have Betty, who I mentioned, who has the summer fling with Ned briefly. Brad, this piece of shit, wants to take Zendaya from Peter Parker. So Peter almost blows him up with a drone. That's pretty crazy. Then we have the two teachers, Mr. Dell and Mr. Harrington. Mr. Harrington, of course, we met in Homecoming. He was the teacher / coach of the decathlon team. He is now in charge of this science trip of going across Europe. And then Mr. Dell, played by J.B. Smoove, is kind of the backup, but more fun and whimsical and very laid back teacher on here. Everybody needs a cool teacher on a school trip. So, but he's great. I love it when he's like, I'm a man of science. This is definitely witches. I love it when he brings up witches when it comes to Mysterio. So that's the cast in a nutshell. I really like the cast in here. Everybody's great, especially Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal as they battle. They could become best friends, and then they battle each other once Peter discovers the truth behind Mysterio. Which brings us to the brief synopsis of the movie. If you haven't seen it in a while, so Peter is going on a class trip across Europe for school, but Nick Fury in the background is trying to pull him back in to do this SHIELD mission with Quentin Beck, who supposedly is from another universe and is fighting these elemental monsters and saving the world. Turns out that is total bullshit. And he is actually a former employee of Tony Stark at Stark Industries. He's the one that helped invent the augmented reality that we saw in Civil War that Tony was presenting to I think it was like MIT or something, but he nicknamed it Barf, and that really pissed off Quentin. So he came up with this scheme all these years to take over this drone / holographic program within Stark Industries to create an Avengers level threat so that he can become the next Iron Man. But that ends up going sideways because Peter Parker ends up defeating him and he ends up dying. But he had the one last say. He revealed Peter Parker's true identity to the world by creating this fake clip of Peter being the one that orchestrated this drone strike in London and attacking all these people. That was one of the craziest and one of the coolest moments in the theater with the post-credit scenes where you get to that point and you're like, holy shit. They just revealed Peter Parker's identity to the world, and he is being framed for the attack on London. It was such great writing, such great execution on the way they messed up the footage and kind of Frankensteined it together and sent it to the Daily Bugle, who we get J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson, which is just perfect. I can't see anybody else playing Jonah Jameson. So it's really cool to get him back after all these years. But so yeah, that's kind of the brief synopsis where Nick Fury hijacks Peter's summer vacation across Europe to take down these elementals who are actually being set up by Mysterio through the drone slash augmented reality system. All right, a couple more notes I want to hit before we get into the iconic scenes. Taking Spider-Man internationally. That was a really cool idea. We never really got this in the live-action Spider-Man movies. We briefly got it, a mention of it, and I think it was Amazing Spider-Man 2, where Gwen Stacy was applying for school in London, and Peter's like, hey, maybe London can use Spider-Man, so that was kind of a hint that they could go internationally with them. But this one, I think, is actually the first time in live action that they went internationally with him. Otherwise, he's pretty much stayed in New York, other than, I guess, if you want to count Civil War, Peter went to Germany. But I think as far as like a Spider-Man focused movie, he's actually abroad this time. He's not in New York, which was pretty cool. MCU post Tony Stark. This is the end. This is where Marvel starts taking a hit in quality with all the Disney Plus shows, with all the half-ass movies that we get. This is the end. Post Tony Stark, and the MCU sucks. You know, it's a different world without Tony, without Iron Man. But in real life, it sucks too, not having Robert Downey Jr. And the quality after Spider-Man Far From Home really went down for a while. I mean, WandaVision was pretty good. That was a cool way. Like, okay, maybe we can have a post Robert Downey Jr. MCU. Then the Falcon and Winter Soldier came out and was like, ooh, we kind of take a step back here a little bit. And then we get shows like She-Hulk and then movies like Eternals. And we're like, yeah, this is not what we want. We want Robert Downey Jr. back. We want the first three phases back. This phase 4, phase 5, not good. And this area that we're in right now, I think, is the best since Far From Home. You know, we've had Deadpool, Wolverine. We've had the Fantastic Four. We're going to be getting Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars. Daredevil is in the MCU now, and his show is awesome. We're getting the Punisher back with his special. So I think now we've really gone slightly back to what we were at the beginning. You know, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was really cool. That reminded me a lot of Iron Man, where it's like, cool, we have a character that we've never really been exposed to with a great origin story, with a great execution in the movie. And then it kind of got weird a little bit. And then now we're back with Deadpool and Wolverine, with Daredevil, with the Fantastic Four. So we're back on track here. We got the Avengers to look forward to. We have another Spider-Man movie to look forward to. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was pretty good. There's a lot of issues I have with it, and we'll talk about that when we do a rewatch on that episode. But movies like Eternals and the Marvels just really made me not excited for the MCU at that point. Same thing with She-Hulk. Same thing with shows like I liked Miss Marvel, but there was definitely a lot that I didn't care for it. The Disney itself has a really bad third act problem where they lead up really good with the first like 4 or 5 episodes, and then when you get to the finale, it's like a cliff. It just gone. The quality just takes a shit down the drain, and it's just unfortunate that they just couldn't end on a high note with these shows. And the movies themselves, it's like, well, that movie should have probably just been a 6-episode show that we can watch whenever we feel like it. And then you have shows like The Falcon and Winter Soldier that probably could have just been a 2-hour movie. We didn't need 6 episodes over 6 weeks. But then we get Hawkeye, which is like, Hawkeye is really great as a show because it was around Christmas time. And you're like, oh, what kind of hijinks is Hawkeye going to get into next week? You know, things like that where it really, really worked. Same thing with WandaVision. WandaVision was great as a week-to-week because you're like, holy crap, what kind of chaos is Wanda going to cause this week? But then you go back to shows like She-Hulk and Miss Marvel. And it's like, and Moon Knight probably could have just been a 2-hour movie and then move on with our lives. Now we have to grind through 6 episodes on Disney Plus to get this story. And then you have Loki, which Loki would have worked as a movie too, but I think that actually benefited from the week to week, because similar to WandaVision, it's like, cool, what kind of hijinks or mischief is Loki going to get into this week? It's like something to look forward to. So a show like Loki, that's where it really worked too as a show. But post Tony Stark, post Phase 3, it gets really messy in the MCU, and we're in for a wild ride for the rest of the MCU marathon from here on out to get up to Avengers Doomsday in December. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a lot of shows one week, a lot of movies one week, so it's going to be chaos, but we're going to have fun. But yeah, the MCU post Tony Stark took a huge dip in quality afterwards. And then the blip. This is what they're calling it. They're calling it the blip, not the snap, not Thanos' snap. They're calling it the blip. So they've kind of branded that. And it's it was a weird name at first, but it's kind of grown on me over the years as other projects and other characters have referred to as the blip. And it makes sense. I mean, people just blipped out of nowhere and then they blipped back. And that was a cool effect to see when they were talking about it on that little school news broadcast at the beginning of the movie, where we get that footage of people disappearing in the gym, and then they come right back to where they were taken in the gym in the middle of a basketball game. And then once this movie came out, social media and Reddit and all that just ran away with this. Like, what about the people in a plane? What about the people in a car? Were they just like poof right in the middle of the road and they get hit? Or do they come back in the sky where the plane was and boom, they're falling to their death? And we're getting a bunch of bodies flying from the sky. Or do they just reappear back into the plane, wherever the plane is? Things like that. People just kind of ran away with it on social media and Reddit. And some of those were pretty funny, but I mean, it's legit. The way that they portrayed in the movie, if you were in a plane when you got blipped, you're probably falling to your death. And then it's like, well, what's the point? So it's funny. It's really sad, but kind of funny to think about that. Where were people at when the blip happened? Like, I hope to God you weren't in the plane or a car, because you're probably going to not make it. So it's really funny and kind of sad at the same time, though. All right, let's get to these iconic scenes. Again, these are scenes that come to your mind first when you hear the title, Spider-Man Far From Home. So I've got 5 nominees here, and then I'll give you the one that I think is the most iconic. So first off, we have Night Monkey and Mysterio versus the Fire Elemental. Of course, Night Monkey is the alternate version of Spider-Man in Europe. He's got the all black tactical suit, but he's still got like the Spider-Man eyes. But I do like the concept of Night Monkey is really cool. The second scene, we have Quentin Beck revealing himself in the fake bar. This was pretty cool. And if you are familiar with the comic books, you knew that something like this was going to happen, because that's what Mysterio is. He uses illusions to fool people. So this whole time you're kind of like, okay, where's the twist? When are we going to get this villain twist here? And it ends up in this bar, the fake bar. I think where were they? Were they in Prague or something like that? After they fight the Fire Elemental, Quentin's like, let's go get a drink. So they go to this bar. And then when you rewatch this, you can see all the other guys in the background. The guy from Iron Man 1 is in the bar cleaning glasses or whatever. And you see some of the other ones. But that was a really cool moment where Peter leaves. He gives him Edith the glasses that control the drone program from Stark Industries. And then you start to see things disappear. And then you get that great expression on Jake Gyllenhaal where he's like, see? Told you it wasn't that hard, tricking a 16-year-old kid into giving me this multi-billion-dollar drone program. So that was like his whole scheme, was to trick Peter into giving him the Edith program, because somebody in their group had figured out that Tony was going to leave it to this kid. And they're like, well, we can't let him have that. He's a freaking kid. What is he going to do with this thing? We can make the world better. We can rule the world with this. Some kid, he's not going to know what to do with it. So they hatched this plan about, befriending Peter. And it's really heartbreaking, because at the beginning you're like, oh, maybe they're switching the origins of Mysterio. Maybe they're making Mysterio a good guy in this. And then no, and then we get to this bar scene. You're like, nope, they're sticking to the comic book lore, and they're making him a villain. And he's a psychopath for sure. The way he just he's killing people, he's going after kids. He's gonna kill Peter Parker, and that's the beauty of how Jake Gyllenhaal approaches this villain. Again, I don't want to step on villain scale too much, but I just really like his Mysterio in here, where sometimes you're like, does he actually care about Peter? Or does he not? Because, he has that line in there where he's like, poor kid. Or he genuinely wants to protect Peter. But then he gets lines too where he's like, I'm going to kill that kid, and so he just turns into this full psycho mode. So it's tough to see if he actually cares about Peter. I think at the beginning he actually did care about Peter, and he was kind of like, shit, I have to befriend this kid who's actually, he's kind of awkward, but he actually is kind of a good guy. But then once Peter starts fucking with his shit, he's like, okay, I'm done with this kid. I'm going to kill him and his friends. He's just starting to really piss me off. So that's one of the great beauties of Jake Gyllenhaal's version of Mysterio in here. The next one, Mysterio's illusion on Peter in Berlin. Now, I'm going to spoil it right now. This is my favorite one. It's one of my favorite scenes in all of the MCU, where Peter gets picked up by who he thinks is Nick Fury in the Berlin Interpol headquarters, but it turns out Mysterio is behind this entire time. And we get the really cool illusions where MJ's there, she's falling off the Eiffel Tower, and Peter's got to save her. You have zombie Iron Man coming out of the grave to attack Peter. Peter gets stuck in this snow globe of New York, which ends up being Mysterio's fishbowl helmet. And it was just the special effects and the way the choreography and the way they planned out each step in this illusion was fantastic. It's one of my favorite scenes in the MCU, and it's my favorite scene in this movie. And when I hear Spider-Man Far From Home, my mind automatically goes to this illusion on Peter in Berlin. Couple more here. Spider-Man fighting the drones in London. That's a really cool action sequence where you get Spider-Man swinging around the bridge, and you have like Big Ben in the background and the big giant Ferris wheel in the background, and he's just blowing up all these drones and it's pissing off Jake Gyllenhaal. It's really, really great. And then we have Mysterio revealing Spider-Man's true identity. This is the post-credit scene, but I think of it too when I hear the title Spider-Man Far From Home. It's a really awesome moment where, he had his little swing around New York date with MJ, and then the Daily Bugle comes on the big screen at one of the corner streets. I don't know if it's like Main Street in New York City. It kind of looks like it. But then they reveal this video footage of that Jake Gyllenhaal kind of Frankenstein together, saying, hey, Spider-Man's real name is Peter Parker. He's the one against the drone, and he's drone attack in London, and he's the one that killed me. He killed me in cold-blooded murder. So then that turns the entire world against Peter, and then that's where No Way Home picks up. It was one of the greatest post-credit scenes ever in the MCU, and it's like a big what the fuck moment in the Spider-Man lore. It's really, really well done. But the most iconic scene, I think, to me, is that illusion on Peter in Berlin. It was awesome, really well executed with the graphics and the choreography and the different stages of that illusion that they decided to do. Really, really, really awesome. The next one we have is the let's fucking go moment of Spider-Man Far From Home. First one, Mysterio arriving to fight the water elemental. This was really cool when they're in Venice. And you get the green smoke coming in. You have Mysterio coming in and out of the portal. He's got his little triangle thing spinning around. That's a really cool effect. I love the green smoke effect that he does with his powers. Really, really well done. But I like this. When Mysterio comes in, he's like, yeah, let's fucking go. Let's get this water monster, man. The next one is Peter building the new suit on the jet plane. This is a really awesome moment where you got AC/DC playing in the background. You got Spider-Man pulling up all the data. Peter pulling up all the data, Spider-Man data in the Stark web base or whatever. And he's doing the Iron Man thing where he's got the thing on his arm and he's, playing with it. He's building his own suit. It's like a let's fucking go moment. Like, this is awesome. He's honoring Tony. He's building his own suit. He's ready to go fight Mysterio. Gets you really hyped. And then the last one is Peter using the Peter Tingle against the drones on that bridge right before Beck shoots himself with the drone, which was a really cool callback to the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire where Willem Dafoe kills himself with his own glider. I thought that was a really cool callback to the first Spider-Man movie where Quentin Beck ends up shooting himself with the drone by accident, and that's how he dies. So that was really cool. I didn't notice that until a couple of rewatches in when I first watched this movie, but I wanted to point that out, that it was a really cool callback to the first Spider-Man movie. But yeah, so this is a really cool scene too where Peter activates, his spider sense, but they call it the Peter Tingle in here. I'm still kind of on the fence with that term, but hey, it's the MCU and they're kind of goofy, but I really like this where they're finally introducing the spider sense to Peter. We kind of get a little glimpse of it in Avengers Infinity War at that scene on the bus where his hairs shoot up when he senses the big alien ship coming to Earth. But this is really where we get introduced to the spider sense finally, and it's really, really awesome. Favorite quotes. This was tough, so I tried to cut this down a little bit for time. So these are my favorite ones. Feel free to say your favorite ones in the chat down below. Also, feel free to, if one of the iconic scenes wasn't on this list either, feel free to throw that in the comments too. I'd love to see what you guys think is the iconic quotes. So favorite are the iconic scenes. Favorite quotes. Nick Fury, bitch, please, you've been to space. This, of course, was in the trailer, but I always giggle when he says that line. Spider-Man at the very end of the movie saying, you know, what the... just like May Parker did at the end of Spider-Man 1 of Spider-Man Homecoming when she sees Peter take off the Spider-Man suit. This one from Happy Hogan. Nobody could live up to Tony, not even Tony. Tony was my best friend, and he was a mess. He second-guessed everything he did. He was all over the place. So there's a really good moment between Happy and Peter where, you know, Peter is just stressed out and struggling with, you know, trying to make Tony proud, trying to be the next Iron Man because everybody else is asking him. And Happy's like, okay, let's pump the brakes here, Peter. Tony was an icon. Like, not even Tony could live up to Tony. Not even Tony could live up to Iron Man. Iron Man blew up into this worldwide phenomenon. And Tony was a mess. Even though he was my best friend, I could recognize that he just was a mess. He second-guessed it. He was all over his mind was all over the place. He was trying to make the world a better place. He made mistakes just like everybody else. Peter, you're going to be fine. I love that moment between Happy and Peter. This one from Mr. Dell, JB Smooth himself. When you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. When you're in Venice, your socks get wet. I love that line when they walk into that really crappy hotel and they're stepping in the water because the building is literally sinking into the river. It's a great line. And then a couple from Mysterio here. If you were good enough, maybe Tony would still be alive. That's one of the lines he says in the Illusion in Berlin, and that's a cold line. Like that's a big fuck you Spider-Man moment where he says that. If you were good enough, maybe Tony would still be alive. Like that's a knife to the heart right there. And then the next one, it's easy to fool people when they're already fooling themselves. And that's kind of how he was able to manipulate Peter so much and so easily, is because he was already all over the place. You know, he was just distraught from the death of Tony. Then we have the fun facts. The Netherlands tulip field scene was filmed in a grass field in the UK. It required around 2 million digital tulips. So CGI'd, not real tulips, people. I get Wizard of Oz vibes when I see that. Jake Gyllenhaal is almost never seen wearing anything other than his full superhero suit throughout the film. It was actually suggested to him he'd wear something else for certain scenes, but according to him, he genuinely liked wearing the suit. So much so that he refused to wear anything else. If you do keep an eye out on the one scene when Peter is buying the Black Dahlia necklace for MJ, you can actually see Jake Gyllenhaal spying on Peter in the background in street clothes. So after I read that, I went back to that scene and watched, and you can see Jake Gyllenhaal in the background watching him. Mysterio's fishbowl helmet is inspired by illustrations from the classic Spider-Man comic books. When creating the look of his suit, the costume designers looked to Iron Man, Vision, Doctor Strange, and Thor. But a lot of it came from the classic Spider-Man comics, and I really like his suit in here. Really great job. Tom Holland wanted Jason Momoa as Kraven the Hunter in this movie. Then again, I'm drawing my blank on his name. Aaron Taylor Johnson ends up playing Kraven the Hunter for Sony. But that would be really cool to get Kraven the Hunter in Peter's MCU version of Marvel. But yeah, I think Jason Momoa would be a good Kraven the Hunter. That would have been too many villains. We're kind of stepping into the Spider-Man 3 territory there. So I'm glad they just kind of kept it with Mysterio. Jake Gyllenhaal has admitted to that this film changed his perception of filmmaking quite radically. Prior to this, he approached every film from a very intense level, but with this one, he enjoyed the experience so much, it helped teach him how to be more relaxed on a film set. And if you remember all the behind the scenes stuff with Jake Gyllenhaal and Tom Holland, like they became really good friends after this movie and during this filming process. You know, they were visiting sick kids in hospitals together, dressed as their characters. They were doing press tours together, interviews together. Like they became really good friends, and that helped Jake Gyllenhaal kind of open up a little bit and relax on set, which I think has helped his acting since this movie. And then lastly, the original plan was for Michael Keaton to reprise his role as Vulture until it was decided that the focus of the film should be on Spider-Man and his relationship with Mysterio. Again, with when we talked about the Kraven the Hunter thing, I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they focused on Mysterio. I'm glad in the Spider-Man Homecoming, they just really focused on Vulture. So I think that was a great choice just to, focus on the relationship between Mysterio and Spider-Man. When we add too many villains in here, it gets really messy. And that's kind of the one little fear I have for Brand New Day, because we're getting clips of Boomerang and Tarantula and Scorpion and possibly another villain, maybe even Green Goblin or somebody else. And it gets too much. So I'm glad that they really focused on Mysterio in this movie, and it made it a better movie for sure. So yeah, I really love this movie. Again, probably super biased because Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. Tom Holland is my favorite favorite actor to play Spider-Man. But I think this is a generally really good superhero movie and a really good Spider-Man movie. I love the villain. I love the action. I love the fact that it's international. We're going across Europe, on summer vacation. I love the action sequences. I love that Nick Fury and Maria Hill are back for the SHIELD component of this, world building and all that. I really, really like it. I love the relationship between Happy and Peter as he kind of becomes a role model figure too, since Tony has passed away. It's really, really cool. I love this movie so much. All right, let's end things like we always do with the rankings. So first, we'll do the MCU ranking, then we'll get into the villain scale, and then we'll wrap things up with the popcorn rating. So Spider-Man Far From Home comes in at number 8 on the MCU list. As a reminder, we'll go through the top 10 here real quick. At number 10, we got Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 9, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. 8 is where Spider-Man Far From Home lands. Then at 7, we have Captain America Civil War. 6, Captain America The Winter Soldier. 5, Spider-Man Homecoming. 4, Avengers Endgame. 3, Avengers Infinity War. 2, Spider-Man No Way Home. And then at number 1, Deadpool and Wolverine. We'll see if that still is the case when we get to No Way Home. I always tend to flip Deadpool, Wolverine, and Spider-Man every time we watch them. So I'm curious to see if this ends up flipping when we get to those movies. But yes, number 8 is where Spider-Man Far From Home lands. I'm sure I'm in the minority there, having it as one of the top 10 movies. A lot of people didn't really care for this one. They thought it was the weakest of the Spider-Man movies. I actually think it's one of the strongest ones. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of really good action, a lot of really cool special effects. We get Mysterio finally in live action, which we haven't done before. And Jake Gyllenhaal did a really good job. Speaking of Jake Gyllenhaal, let's talk about that villain scale. So again, as a reminder, we're going to talk about the motivation behind the villain, the costume, and then the performance by the actor. Well, it's easy. I've already talked about it throughout the episode. The performance by Jake Gyllenhaal, fantastic. I love his version. I love his approach. I love his take on Quentin Beck, a.k.a. Mysterio. The way he's able to manipulate Peter, befriend him, make the audience think, too, that, maybe they're making Mysterio a good guy in here. Nope. Flip the switch. We're going to stick to the comic book lore. We're going to make him a villain. And he's a really good job. He's a really good psychopath villain in here. I really like, they gave him Gyllenhaal a lot to do in here. A lot of great dialogue, a lot of great action sequences. He had a lot to do, and I really, really appreciate it. Great writing. The motivation behind the villain. I mean, he's a psychopath, but, he was kind of thrown to the wolves, cast off to the side by Tony, and I would hold a grudge too if, I worked on this multi-billion-dollar idea and the CEO of the company just shat on it and called it barf. He just got sick of being cast aside along with everybody else. who got fired by Tony over the years. So I think his motivation is warranted. You know, it's thought out. They did a good job at writing the script to give him some kind of motivation as the villain in here. Now, I know a lot of people didn't really care for him as a villain. I really like it. And I think Jake Gyllenhaal did a fantastic job. And the writers did a good job, too, at writing in a legitimate motivation that you can buy into of, yeah, that makes sense. Like, that makes sense to be a villain in that aspect. And then the costume. I really like the costume. They did a really good job at pulling in the classic comic books, but also taking inspiration from other Avengers like Doctor Strange and Iron Man, because he wants to be the next Tony Stark. He wants to be the next big Avenger superhero. So obviously he's going to mimic Iron Man and some of the other Avengers so that he can look like an Avenger and the world can buy into him being an Avenger, and then he can do whatever the hell he wants. So I really like the costume, really comic book accurate, but also throwing in their own MCU spin. The MCU is really good at doing the costumes correctly, and not just the movies, but the shows too. So I really like the costume. So with all that said, I'm giving Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, 5 Thanos heads in Spider-Man Far From Home. Now I'm sure a lot of people are like, that's really high, but that's just how I feel. That's how I really like Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio. It's one of my favorite villains in the MCU, so I'm giving him 5 Thanos heads. And then lastly, but certainly not least, the popcorn rating. With it being a top 10 movie, you can probably guess what my rating is, and that is the golden popcorn. I really love this movie. Love the action, love the comedy, love the relationship between Jake Gyllenhaal and Spider-Man. I think they did a really good job at writing this, executing it, doing great special effects with all the illusion stuff. And the drone idea was really cool, and how to explain how Mysterio can do the illusions. You know, it's not magic. It's using actual technology to give him quote unquote superpowers, which I think I remember reading people had issues with that too, of always tying in to Iron Man, always tying back to Tony Stark in the MCU and specifically the Spider-Man movies. I don't have a problem with that. It makes sense. You know, the MCU is trying to ground this a little bit in reality, but also, you know, we have magic, we have Doctor Strange, we have Thor. But that doesn't mean everybody has to be. You know, Mysterio is still really awesome with just using illusion tech. You know, he doesn't have to have illusion magical powers. He can use the tech within the universe, and the drone. And that's where the drones come in. And it's really cool, a really neat idea. I like how they did that. So I'm giving it golden popcorn status for Spider-Man Far From Home. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. The next Marvel episode will be WandaVision. So we're going to get into phase 4, and we start getting to all these Disney Plus shows along with the movies. So we're going to do WandaVision next week. We're also going to release the Super Mario Galaxy movie review episode finally. That'll come out on Sunday. At least I'm going to try to. I have a Vegas trip coming up, so I'm going to try to get that episode out on Sunday, but it will be out on Monday for sure. And then we got a whole bunch of other content coming your way. So go ahead and check out the past episodes on the show on YouTube. Listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you go. Other things coming from Quantum Podcasts. We have the End Zone Report coming up. We're just a few days away from the NFL Draft. So we're going to get some more episodes of the End Zone Report coming out. And then we'll get back to the Quantum Flash Gaming channel as well, since I'll have more time after the website building to start streaming on Twitch once again. So a lot of content coming from Quantum Podcast. So check all that out on social media as well as YouTube. So with that, later, everybody, have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next time on the show.